Yeah, in the statements on the color of the car, uh, the dark blue or black is pretty much what you get, but you get more of the black than the dark blue in the statements. Yeah, Corey, I have heard that a tag number was obtained, but I'm not going to go any further in that at this point.
Okay, so if a tag number was obtained off the car, which is incorrect, that would give the police a lead to follow. Here he's saying that someone told him that there was a tag number, but they complain that the police don't follow up on things. If there was a tag number, the police would have followed up because they followed up on the tag numbers that were mentioned at Angela Rickles' house. There was no tag number found on the police car. He wants to pretend like they're being held under wraps and shh. I was told there was a tag number, but they can't tell you because it's part of the investigation. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I don't even know who got it, who got the tag number. I was just told that from a reliable source, mind you, that a tag number was gotten, but it's been kept under the.
Let's guess. A deep throat at the DA. Reliable sources. You guys have all these reliable sources. You can't name them. It's like the multiple people that Darren asked to rob his home. They exist. Or do they?
The rug because it's part of the investigation. It's a very sealed up secret.
It's a very sealed up secret. He said this 4 years ago, almost 5. Shh, we got a tag number. Should be getting out very soon. Why do they have to try to gain support with stuff like this?
Oh, Corey, you can talk about the facts. You can talk about the facts all you want.
Somebody in the chat trying to mess with him.
Well, actually, yeah, we're bumping over an hour, which is where I like to keep the podcast. But we got a pretty good little discussion going on here. We can go for a little bit longer. Yeah, actually, the Chad Patterson's fingerprint was tested to J85 fingerprint, and it cleared Chad Patterson. It was not.
That's what Cyrilda told me, and he's going on what Cyrilda told me. Cyrilda told me that they got a hold of Chad's print and they matched it up, and no, he was innocent. That's what they said. But if they can have Chad's print run, why couldn't they run 85J? Cerullo told me they got his print and that he wasn't involved. I highly doubt that. Cerullo also told us that when Darlie was at the hospital, she pulled up her gown and she was bruised all from her ribs all the way up to her nipple. We know better than that. Chad is only a suspect of these everybody but Darlie people. Just because Jimmy Patterson and Chad Patterson lived with Monica Patterson over on Kensington, which is about 3 blocks away from Eagle Drive. That's the only connection they have.
His fingerprint. And I don't believe that Chad Patterson went into that house and murdered those boys. Not at all. Or assaulted Darlie. And don't get me wrong, Chadwick Patterson's got a pretty rocky past.
He
But
keeps on talking about Chad's rocky past, but he's only going on what he hears. He got in trouble with the law once. It's assumed that he was in the Grove Street gang, blah, blah, blah.
some strange stuff in there and so on and so forth. But no, I don't believe he killed those children. Chad Patterson, he was Jim Patterson, the one of the detectives in the case. It was his son who also knew Darren.
I don't know. Chad knew Darren. I have no idea. He was kind of rolling his eyes on that. That's the first I've ever heard that Chad knew Darren.
Yeah, Basha Javel had made the statement. As a matter of fact, if you listen to one of BryanSt.John's interviews with Basha Javel, she clearly states that in that particular. And
It was not Basha that told me that. It was Cyrilda that told me that. And explain this. Explain this. Because you got this wrong for sure. If Basha Jovel told me that, then that would mean that she still had contact with the family about the investigation. So what happened to this big, huge falling out they had? That they're still telling her stuff. No, it's Cyrilda who told me that, not Basha.
interview. No names were put to the person, not to my knowledge. And I'm sure at this point, if there was, I would have found it. But then again, I could be wrong.
Later on, they said they have like 200 matches and they're breaking it down to 100 to 50 to 25.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I have not. So I want to make this clear from the get go. I haven't had the pleasure of talking with Basha Javel. I have found her, but I have not had any luck in having any communication with her. I would really like to do so. In my opinion, from what I have heard, I'd like to do this myself before I come up with a firm conclusion. But I believe she's a fairly valid character witness.
Yeah, now he's saying that Basha is a very valid character witness. All right. But in his later videos, he says, "Oh, you can't believe her. She's got a background of psychiatric. She's a drug addict and blah blah." And they had a big falling out.
I believe that a lot of the stuff that she has said is probably true. But
Except for when she says something against Darlie. Because she did tell me without being asked that Darren and Darlie had been fighting all that week. That she came over that day of the murders to get her mother. She went inside, and Darlie was in the kitchen arguing with Darren. She was sharpening her knives, but she was making dinner too. She said she stepped out back, and Damon was out there playing with a stick. And she said, Damon came up to her and said, "Can I come spend the night with you tonight?" And she was down talking to him. "Well, no, I have to work. Why would you want to spend the night with me?" He said, "Because Damon told her that because mommy's being mean to me again." And later on, Rich says he don't believe a damn word that Basha says.
again, I wasn't there. I can't prove that. Yeah, yeah, Kelly. I'm just saying that Sirota Routier and Darlie Key, and Darlie Key has told me this, that they actually obtained Chad Patterson's fingerprint and tested it against J85, and it comes.
They didn't tell you that. Cirilda told me that on an interview. Cirilda told me that. Or they would tell you how they obtained his prints, Rich.
Back not being Chad Patterson's. So I'm not saying, I'm not referring to an intruder on that, but there is a lot of claims out there that Chad Patterson went in and murdered those boys, and I don't believe it.
Those claims only come from the supporters. Started with David Moffett and Patrick King. They were years before your time, Rich.
And I don't want to speak for Sirota Routier, and I don't want to speak for Darlie Key, but I'm willing to bet my life they would tell you they don't believe he did it either.
Well, if prints don't match, that you heard her tell me that they got, that Cirilda told me that, not Basha. I remember those interviews word for word.
Well, here's the thing. That's a very good point you just made.
See, he's responding to here again, which is Pamela, but she's not in the chat, so that means he blocked her.
How do I want to explain this? Every time when something, over the past 23, 24 years, and this is my opinion, would come up in the case, whether it come out favorable or not for Darlie Lynn, it goes through kind of what we're going through here tonight in the chat. And I think, sad to say, Darlie's running out of time. And I do not believe they want the wrong information getting out there, it getting all mixed up, construed, whether, it gets proven or disproven. I don't believe that it's just better off keeping quiet with it right now and letting the judicial system deal with it and the facts of it.
No.
No, I totally agree with you two here again on the aspect that Chad Patterson did not do it. No, I do not believe he did. I never talked to him, but I have looked into him rather extensively. There's some weird stuff that's past and stuff, but I do not believe that he did that. But again, what we were talking about tonight, and I've talked to some people, some other supporters. A lot of them disagree with me, I must say, on my feelings and my thoughts. I'm not saying an intruder didn't come in there. What I'm saying is the evidence is limited to that cause.
That's right.
But I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's not impossible, but it's the chances are low. So, I'm not going to, go off in one way or the other. And,
the chances of an intruder coming in there are low.
Start speculating. The facts is the evidence is minimal at best, but not impossible.
Well done.
Wait, you can't believe I said what? You can bet the farm, folks. When I talk to other people that investigate the case, or discussions that I've had with Darlie Key or discussions I've had with other important people on the case, you can bet your farm I go a whole lot deeper. What I am trying to prevent here is if I am incorrect on a theory, I don't want to be putting it out there and not go under my name. But if I can prove something or put something out there or inform somebody of the correct information that we can prove, that's what I'm trying to do. Because there's too much, way too much misinformation. And Corey, I'm not saying for a minute that the system wasn't crooked, because it sure as hell was in her case. It was awful.
Yeah.
I thought, first of all, I feel as though the Darlie Routier's defense team was a joke at best. And you got to remember,
We've got the best. She had a team. She had several attorneys. And all of them were a joke. So was Greg Davis. He was a joke. So were the jury. They were all a joke. Well, you know who's not laughing at the joke? Devin and Damon Routier. They don't think it's funny.
something about Greg Davis, and I know this for a fact about Greg Davis. He's a very dynamic speaker. And I like to use the phrase that he could talk the Virgin Mary in opposing for a centerfold. And a very dynamic speaker. He is good at what he does, but he's evil, in my opinion.
The prosecutor was evil. And he had the power. He had Charles Manson influence.
I didn't say to wait for the legal system to help her.
Yes, you did.
I don't think those were my words.
You said you let the judicial process take its course. It's the same thing.
If they were, somebody correct me, please, because I don't believe that I said it that way.
You said it's best to be quiet and let the judicial process take its course, is what you said.
Minimal evidence of an intruder, in my opinion. Well, we went through that a little bit earlier in the podcast. So let's try it again.
He's being trolled right now by somebody.
We talked about the cut screen. Okay. So if it was an inside job, and we're not talking about setting it up, I'm talking about the possible evidence of an intruder. We got a cut screen. There's something else I want to point out about that. Another reason why I believe that whoever killed those boys and assaulted Darlie, if you don't know that house, you don't know that lot, you don't know that neighborhood, but let's cut it back to the house and inside of the house. That window where the screen was cut, okay, that went into a garage, which there was a door that the Routiers left unlocked that went into the utility room. And then you could enter through the house that way. How the hell could a random intruder know to go through that window? How do they know that that door is going to be unlocked?
Thank you.
And think about that for a minute. You're going into a house that you don't know in the middle of the night and in the dark. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
Unless they knew its surroundings.
Yes.
They don't know what to, here's the thing, for all they know, there's going to be an attack dog in there. Keep in mind that there were dog cages right by that cut screen at the window.
The cat cage. Darren built it.
You don't know what kind of dog's in there. It's liable to run up and tear your face off.
So why would they go in there, Rich?
Well, I'm going to catch up on some of these comments here. Well, to you again, you're talking about 85J will never do anything for Darlie. I hope you're wrong. I question it, but I hope you're wrong.
He's got her blocked.
85J is a 7.8 point.
I can see him responding to her, but I can't see her in the chat, which means that he's blocked her from that channel.
Fingerprint. For those that know me well, know that I worked on the John Kennedy assassination for 20 some odd years. When I was very young, and I still work on the case, actually. I've worked with some of the biggest and the best investigators on the case. I know Robert Groden very well, Tom Rosley, many others. But
those are people that have written books and done some investigation on the case that go to Dealey Plaza. They go there every anniversary, and Rich has pictures of himself with them. He says he's a great, good personal friend of his. So tell us about the last time you visited his home, or he came to yours.
We worked on a fingerprint. This is how I got acclimated with fingerprints so well. In the Texas School Book Depository, they found a 13, almost 14 point match fingerprint. And that's a slam dunk if you could match it to somebody. And we were able to match that to a man by the name of Malcolm Wallace, which was actually kind of one of Lyndon Johnson's thugs, so to speak.
Notice he said we were able to match that, and that he worked on that case for 20 some years. I've already debunked this, but he likes to stand by it. He said, no, that's not what I said. I said our team, our people. No.
But anyway, during that time, we were the folks that I was working with on it. They kind of broke how fingerprints work and how they get the point matches and so on and so forth. Now, J85 is a 7 to 8 point fingerprint.
8 points, and it's not J85. You worked with some of the world's best, but you can't even get the tag to this print in this case right, Rich. You called it J85 for 2 years.
Now, that's a little bit below satisfactory. It doesn't mean it cannot be identified. It can be identified at a 7 or 8, but it's below satisfactory.
So if Darlie Key and Cyrilda got a hold of Chad's prints to match it against J85, why can't they run J85? How do they know Chad's prints didn't match that one if they don't know what it is?
I'd like to see bigger and better than that, but it's not impossible to identify that fingerprint.
That's the one they were talking about, Rich. Darlie Key and Cyrilda, who you said told you, but they told me. Well, not Darlie Key, but Cyrilda told me. So if they matched it to 85J, that means they have an identification on 85J. Why can't they run 85J?
No, Kelly. I've never heard that they have proven that. There is speculation on that, but I've never seen no documentation that showed that J85 was Darlie's.
She can't be ruled out. There is a document.
It could have been, Corey. I'm not saying that it wasn't. What I'm saying is there's no documentation proving that was Darlie's.
You just went through and said that they told you they got Chad Patterson's prints and they matched it, and it didn't match to 85J. You just said that.
Fingerprint that I've ever seen. I got pretty good, reliable people that I work with on this case, and it's never
that you work with. See how you put that out there? You said you worked on the Kennedy case. Your team. You're putting yourself out falsely, Rich.
I've never seen anything like that on it. To my understanding, they're still trying to get that print thoroughly run not saying it wasn't run, but they're thoroughly run.
Well, how do you half-ass run a print? Tell me. You either run it or you don't.
Yeah, it's well, I don't they've never put a name to that print. You know, some I believe it was James Cron that said that it was probably a child's fingerprint. That has never been proven. Um, some people claim that it was one of Darlie's prints. That has never been thoroughly proven.
He's right.
All I'm saying, Kelly, okay, with the print, I have never seen any official documentation putting a name to that print. There's a whole lot of BS on it out there. I can tell you that, but they've never put a name to that print yet. Oh, Corey, I don't know that I would say that. I think they're taking a pretty good look at everything and all possibilities. In other words, I think kind of the frame of mind that's being taken on the case is everybody's a suspect, which is probably not a bad idea, to be quite
Everybody's a suspect in your guys' mind.
honest with you, under the circumstances. Yeah, it's I've heard people claiming that Bryan St.John murdered those boys,
Holy shit.
and that's a really rough statement to make.
And that's why I'm here.
And no, I do not believe that Bryan St.John had anything to do with that. And that really pissed him off, quite honestly. And I don't
It's pretty nasty when she could see, Darlie Keese could see that I left support because I saw the truth. And that was one of the first things she said. I want your print. Where were you at that night? I want to compare it to 85J. And then when I went back at her, I said, look here, you fucking dumb bitch. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, blah, blah, blah. She ran to the police talking about I was harassing her. And they laughed at her. You accused somebody of murder, dumbass. And Danelle said, how's that restraining order my mom put on you? She never put one on me. Dumbass. She lied to her own daughter.
blame him for that. I'd be pretty pissed off too if somebody said that I murdered their children or somebody's children. Oh, I don't know, Corey. Initially they kind of, right at the beginning, they were kind of pointing the finger at Darren a little bit. Even Darlie Lynn had made that claim. And
The chat says, he used to be a supporter, but her mother hurt and tried to destroy him.
then they started pulling
And
their
here I
attention
still
off of
am.
him and obviously went to Darlie pretty much right away. The thing that gets me with it is, especially with the investigation like James Cron, you know, oh well, in 20 or 30 minutes we pretty much, well, he said that in 20 or 30 minutes he said there was something wrong with the crime scene. He said that there was no intruder. Well, in my opinion, that's BS. Okay.
It's BS. Why? Because here we are, what, 28, 29 years later, and there's still no evidence of an intruder. You just got done saying that there was minimal evidence of an intruder, but you didn't say what it was. So how's it complete BS to you? When a doctor looks at a patient, they have to look at the wounds that are on them and they have to make a determination as to what they think needs to be done. And they do that on influence sometimes based on their own intuitions.
There's no forensic evidence that was tested at that point. None of the blood was tested at that point.
And when it was tested, it added match to his theory that there was no intruder in the house. Because if it was tested and there was other person's blood in there, or another person's fingerprint or another person's footprint, they wouldn't have stood on no, there was no intruder. They wouldn't have dismissed all that. It all led back to what his initial intuition was.
Point in that house was a bloodbath at best. I mean, it was awful. Blood everywhere. I mean, it was like something off the movie The Shining or something. And I don't know how you can make claims like that without looking at that evidence and putting in.
Over the same way you said that you looked at the case, you knew she was innocent. Yeah, you didn't look at any of the evidence firsthand.
Information out there like that. I mean, you have to remember, that whole family. I mean, they're victimized by this horrible crime, and to say something like that without all the evidence tested and analyzed.
And then when it was tested and analyzed, what'd you come up with, Rich? Out of your own mouth. Very minimal. Did you listen to what you said 15 minutes ago? Very minimal evidence of an intruder.
That's ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous. That's your opinion.
Horrible thing to say, but they do stuff like that. And let me also make it clear with James Cron that he worked under Henry Wade during the time when they had Oswald arrested for the assassination of President.
He learned that from me too. He didn't work under the Dallas DA. He worked in the Dallas jail. He didn't work under Henry Wade. Douglas Mulder did. Darlie's lawyer worked under Henry Wade, who was a corrupt DA. He really was.
President John Kennedy. Well, we can see what happened with that. So maybe that same kind of investigation is what hit in Rowlett in '96.
No, because James Cron did not work under the district attorney's office. He was a turnkey at the city jail. Has nothing to do with. He worked for the Dallas Sheriff's Department. Had nothing to do with working under Henry Wade.
And let me catch up on some of these comments here. Well, two here again. You're talking about the
It's Pamela Collins that he's talking to, but she's not in the chat because he's got her blocked for some reason. Maybe it's because she harassed and insulted or something like that.
Points of comparison. 7 to 8 points. You can't compare that. It's not what they would like. It's not a slam dunk. It's actually a little bit below satisfactory for them, but it's not impossible, is what I'm saying. So, in my opinion, that print should be run thoroughly at all costs and aspects. Why not?
It's the only way you can
Here's
run.
the thing.
You can't run it undone thoroughly. There's only one test.
Have somebody on death row that's lining up to be executed. I think all the evidence should be investigated accordingly and tested accordingly. Because, once you put somebody to death, you can't bring them back.
Yeah. Too bad we can't bring Devin and Damon back. Justice for Devin and Damon.